Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you took a flight all the way across the country from San Francisco, whether you drove all through the night like my group did, whether you just took a quick car ride here. It doesn't matter. We're so glad that you're here. By a quick show of hands or a quick raise of your voice, does anybody know who Don LaFontaine is? We've got one in the middle. You may not know who he is, but you know his voice. In the voiceover business, that's what he's called. He's known as the Voice. His trademark was the now famous asking of the audience to picture a world in order to set the stage for a movie. You know the Voice. In a world with no puppies. Or, in a time when the aliens took all our marshmallows. You know, you get, I can't do it justice, but you get the feel for it. He's the guy in the movies doing the voiceover, right? Well, to start your theme, I'd like you all to set the moment, to set the time and place for yourself. I'd like you to close your eyes. Not for too long. If you're like me, you're exhausted from all sorts of travel today. Perhaps you're hopped up on a little too much Dr. Pepper. But if you would take a moment to close your eyes, take a couple deep breaths, and picture a world in your mind with no margins. Define margins however you wish, but picture a world with no margins. Now, to get to that world with no margins, I would ask you to picture that place that you would go to start this overwhelming task, to bring about this world with no margins. Thank you so much. Feel free to open your eyes. At least in my mind, or when I do this exercise, I would like to propose that moving beyond the margins, the second half of this year's theme, isn't solely a pursuit that's done by being in relationship, friendship, kinship, or solidarity with our brothers and sisters in developing nations, but it can be done there. The margins aren't just abstract places 2 blocks north of campus in Creighton's place, or somewhere down or up the red line depending on whether you're at Loyola Chicago or St. Ignatius College Prep. They aren't only accessible if I take the 405 to the 10 downtown. They don't just happen if I decide to walk from St. Peter's College, now University, to Journal Square, or venture beyond the gates of campus from Fordham into the heart of the Bronx. But the margins exist there as well. The margins, I believe, are first and foremost constructs in our hearts and in our minds that penetrate and permeate into our daily lives. We carry the margins with us at our high schools, colleges, parishes, jobs, volunteer placements. We use them, or at least I use them, as an excuse from being the manifestation of God's love on earth that I'm supposed to be, that we're supposed to be. Where do we encounter the margins? We encounter the margins when consciously or unconsciously skin color, gender, religion, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, country of origin, education level, cognitive ability, immigration status, you get the idea. When they become more important to me than the recognition of God's beauty in front of us. We encounter the margins when I'm allowed to, nay, expected to despise you, because at the end of a long political campaign, I'm not supposed to respect your politics enough to engage in a civil dialogue with you. We encounter the margins when, as Father Greg Boyle writes in Tattoos on the Heart, we stand there with those whose dignity has been denied, when we locate ourselves with the poor and powerless and the voiceless. At the edges, where we join the easily despised and the readily left out. When I was a senior in college, I was doing that, sort of. I decided to take a road trip with my buddy Matthew. He's getting married this weekend, tomorrow actually. We took a road trip from Omaha, Nebraska. We made a brief stop in Arizona to watch the Sox and Giants play during spring training, and then we headed over to Los Angeles for the spring teach-in. This is back when it was happening, the spring teach-in on immigration at Loyola High School in Los Angeles. There, one of the speakers was Father Tom Green, now with the Jesuit Conference in Washington, D.C., but then he was a recently ordained priest working with the Jesuit Social Research Institute out of New Orleans. He gave an amazing talk on comprehensive immigration reform, but the thing that stuck out to me wasn't his statistics about our immigration system. It wasn't his stories about racist immigration judges. It was this two-word phrase that he kept repeating over and over. How we were going to fix this system. It was about imagination reform. Imagination reform. To finish Father Boyle's quote from earlier, even if we find the margins, we've made an important but incomplete step, at least in my mind. And Father Boyle introduces that part that I read previously by saying, soon we imagine with God the circle of compassion. Then we imagine no one standing outside of that circle. Moving ourselves closer to the margins so that the margins themselves will eventually be erased. Imagination is a hallmark in Ignatian prayer. And I think that's why Father Boyle puts it in his book. I think that's why Father Tom brought it up in his talk 4 years, 8 months, and 8 days ago. Not that I'm keeping track. Why imagination reform? Because it seems it's getting harder and harder to impact any change in our country and world. Yet, if we continue to dream it, we can continue to challenge our imagination to seek a more just world. And then we will be able to achieve it. When I was thinking about imagination reform, I thought of that movie, Willy Wonka, the original with Gene Wilder, not this remake by Tim Burton and Johnny Depp. But there's this song, "Come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination." Now, I don't suggest that we delude ourselves and drink the Kool-Aid that imagination reform is solely something that we do in our minds. But it's where we start. Willy Wonka said, "We are the music makers and we are the dreamers of dreams." And that's how change is brought about. When we can conceive of it, we can do it. So tonight, on this 23rd anniversary of the death of the Jesuits and their companions in El Salvador, we recognize their dreams, their imagination, and their work for a more just world. But we also recognize the vision of men and women like Day, King, Gandhi, Berrigan, Stang, Chavez. And tonight, and this weekend, as we stand on their shoulders and look towards the future, we commit ourselves to reimagining, imagination reform, so that we can bring about that more just world that we so desire. Thank you very much. Have an amazing weekend.